It is stage 1, week 4, part 2. We got a couple more days of predictions. We had some good matches the last couple days. I went a total of, since there are only 3 per day, I went a total of 4 and 2. Went 2 and 1 both days. So it was a pretty solid start. One of them that I got wrong was my Gladiators came through with the win. It was a massive win. I've never been so happy to get a game wrong. But yeah, some interesting games. Dallas looked really good in their rematch against Shanghai. Got that one wrong as well. Vancouver stomped Paris, so that was a little unexpected. I thought it'd be closer. I did think Vancouver would win, but they look like a juggernaut. Fran put up a good fight against New York, but could not come through on any of the maps. So yeah, we had some great matchups, and we have a lot going into these next 2 days. I was looking at the list, and I was like, that's a good matchup. Well, that's a good matchup. There's another good matchup. So it's cool. And without further ado, we're going to jump straight on into it. First match, Valiant and Houston. So Valiant still looking for that first win. Suffered another heartbreaking loss to Philadelphia. They're down to 0-6 now, and Houston is at 2-3, looking to make a stage playoff push. So, advantage in this one, I'm going Valiant. And I just can't see this team going 0-7. They are 0-6, but they've kept most of their games except they got stomped by the Titans. But everyone's getting stomped by the Titans. But other than that, they've kept games close. Like they had a very close one against Philadelphia last time out. They took New York to 5 maps. They lost to the Spark in 5 maps. Their match against Toronto was close, 2-1. So I think that they've been there, but they just can't quite finish it out. So that is one thing that we'll see if they can do now. I do think Houston is the weakest team they've played against, so I think that will work in their favor. I honestly, if I was doing, I will do my updated power rankings at the end of the stage, but I would still put Valiant in the middle of the pack. I would still put them like around 12-13 range because they've lost to top tier teams. And while yes, they've looked really bad in some cases, they still are being very competitive. So I think they win this one. In terms of an X factor, I would like to see what Houston does. In terms of their lineups, they've changed their lineups a lot. Last week they performed really well when they came out with they kicked off Dante for a bit, and they kind of had like their OG lineup back in there. They actually had Bonnie playing the Zenyatta instead of Raucus for a couple of maps, so that was interesting. And it worked out really well for them. But in terms of just matchups and in terms of their goats, I still like Valiant here. I'm gonna give them a 3-1 victory. Um, Houston, I would think the map 1 or 2 would be control point, or hybrid would be the one to win for them. But we'll see, because Houston did look really solid in their last matchup. So this one, again, it's going to be a good match. Could go either way, but I like the Valiant to finally get that first win, and the crowd, I'm sure, will go nuts. They still got a lot of Valiant fans there. Then, one that I don't think will be as close, Seoul Dynasty and Washington Justice. So Seoul's sitting at 2-3. They've been very disappointing. Washington is 0-4. Obviously, they're disappointed in that. I think Seoul's a much better team. Some people have said, like, oh, Washington, they haven't won yet, but they've had a really tough schedule, and they have. That's true. But they're like, oh, man, Washington, like, looks good. I completely disagree. I think they look terrible. Their engages are so bad. Like Janice, I think he's a bottom 3 Reinhardt. Guido, I think he's the worst Zenyatta. Um, Fozix, I like Fozix, but hasn't impressed me at all. Sam has looked pretty decent. Their diva player. Corey, that ain't it on the Zarya. A lot of grabs eaten. He's like Sinatra, but kind of worse in every way. Like at least Sinatra puts in huge damage, and Corey, he gets energy, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of his overall gameplay. So because of that, I like Seoul in this one, even though they've looked really bad the last couple days. I think that they will prevail in the end because they just have better players throughout. I think that like when you have Fissure on a team and Jay Hong, those guys, they're just not going to allow themselves to lose to Washington. I don't see it. Washington will probably take a map, maybe even 2. We might have a London situation, but I do believe that Seoul will finish this one out. Next, we have another great matchup. Guangzhou Charge, LA Gladiators. So two teams that are looking good, at least recently. Of course, Gladiators are now 2-4. They got a huge victory though, 4-0, against a good team in Atlanta. So I'm sure their confidence is going to be way up. Guangzhou has looked very solid this season. They lost to Chengdu their first match, which they should not have lost. But since then they've performed very well. They played Vancouver. I would say the closest anyone has. They took them to 5 maps, but I I'm gonna go with Gladiators here. Guess back on the back on the bandwagon, but they looked really good. They looked super airtight. The communication looked so much better. So we'll see if they can replicate it again, because they did look really good against Shock and then looked discombobulated the next couple games. So we'll see which Gladiators we see, if we see the good ones or the not so good ones. I think Guangzhou will play very solid, but in terms of like potential and talent, I think that Gladiators are definitely higher up. So if both teams play very well, I still think Gladiators have the edge. I could see this one coming down to 5. I will say it goes down to 5, but we've seen the Charge have had some issues in map 5s on those control points, and that is where the Gladiators will get their ultimate edge. So got Gladiators prevailing in a great matchup, 3-2. Another really good one next. It's the Honjo Spark taking on the Toronto Defiant. So Toronto, they're sitting at 4-2. Spark are sitting at 3-3. This is a very important matchup, especially for the Spark. If they win this, they're probably going to make the stage playoffs. If they lose, they will not make it. I'm like 99.9% sure, because their map differential isn't great, and then they'd be sitting at 3-4. And I don't. Maybe one 3-4 team will make it in, but the way the standings are shaking out, it looks like probably like 3 through 8 could all be 4-3. So very important matchup. I still don't really know how to gauge the Spark. They look really good in moments. They look really like just off in other moments. One important thing was it seems like they committed to Guxi on main tank, and he's been performing a lot better than No Smite was, especially on like that Winston when they flex to the Winston on generally the Temple of Anubis and Horizon Lunar Colony and Nubani as well. So I'm gonna go with the Spark here. I'm gonna trust them to play well again. It seemed like they kind of ironed a lot of their issues out against the Gladiators. Toronto also looks very solid. I'm still not completely sold on them. Ivy had his first really good game of the season. I think that Guxi is better than Yakpung. So I think that gives them the edge there. And yeah, I think this one's gonna come down to the Spark, honestly, because they look like a top tier team when they have it all together. But will they have it all together? I'm gonna guess, because of the implications, they're not gonna have those stage jitters as much, and they're going to come out and win a close contested series, 3-1. And moving on to tomorrow. Again, great couple matchups leading off here. It's Paris and San Fran right away. So both teams coming off losses. San Francisco lost to New York. That put them down to 3-3. So they're in the situation that the Spark were. Like if they really want to make this stage playoff, they got to win this matchup. Paris is in a similar situation. They're sitting at 2-2. They've lost 8 maps in a row. They got swept by Atlanta and then Vancouver. So yeah, these are pretty close teams. I like the talent level of San Fran a lot more, but I think that Paris is a little bit better at running goats. But we're really gonna see the makeup of Paris here, because they just got smacked 2 matches in a row. I mean, you losing 8 straight maps in Overwatch League. We'll see if they still have their confidence, or if they come out and are a little bit gun shy. Because if they are, then this one could get ugly. I think that San Fran will win it. I think that Paris will come out with a better effort than their last couple, because they kept the first couple maps pretty close against Vancouver, but then it just kind of got ugly towards the end. So, like I said, I think San Fran is a superior team overall, just by a little bit, and they've played. The only teams that San Fran has lost to are Gladiators, New York, and then Vancouver. So I think that they will be super ready for this matchup. I think that Super will play pretty well. Because, like I said, I was I was decently impressed overall at their job against New York. Super had some shatters on the third map where I was just like, it was like the thinking emoji, just like, what is he doing? So, um, we will see what kind of performance we get from him, and also I really think that they need to switch. Rascal looks bad on Brig. He just looks bad. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's not great recently. Like he's just getting picked by Jonak, fight again against New York, and I think that if they really want to win and do better within this last little bit of goats that we got, I think you got to put in Architect on Brig again. I just like him a lot more with the team and on that hero in general. So yeah, I think that I'm gonna say San Fran in 3-1. I'm tempted to pick this one to go to 5, but I think that San Fran will pull it out in 4. So. Yep, got another tight matchup here. I think that it's, again, one that could go either way, but I like San Fran just a little bit more because of their Zarya Rhine synergy. Next, London. They're looking to win their 4th straight matchup. They're sitting at 3-2. Another win will pretty much solidify them in the stage playoffs. They're playing against Shanghai, who's coming off 2 straight losses to the Dallas Fuel. They didn't look great in their last matchup either against them. Looked like Dallas was better, more coached. Well, more coached. They were much better in terms of being coached and just their synergy. Ever since they've taken out Effect and had the same 6 people in there, they've looked really solid. They've looked really cohesive, and I think that continues. AKM's Zarya has been a pretty big surprise for me because I remember watching in the World Cup and was thinking, oh god, he's terrible at Zarya. But he's turned into a very good Zarya. OGE is as rock solid as always. Unko, again, great at Zenyatta, just absolutely great. Zachary had a really bad first couple matches, but he's really seemed to kind of come into his own, I guess, and I think he's just like a solid member of the team. Definitely not a carry, but a decent member of the team. And then Closer looked really solid on the Lucio. Again, that was a good pickup for them. And RCK's looked really good too. The Diva's been really solid. When he's had to play Sombra, he has done it quite admirably. So, sorry, I'm going on a Dallas rant when they're not even playing. So Shanghai, I think it just hasn't quite clicked yet. And I don't see it clicking yet against London, especially. London's been playing a lot better. Prophet looks great on Zarya because he's great at every single hero. Let's be honest, he's so good. It doesn't matter what they ask him to play, he'll carry on it. So I think that Shanghai will take a map. Shanghai might jump out to a nice lead, and then London will just bring it back. But I have a very hard time seeing Shanghai take this one. I think that London takes care of them decently easily. I think it'll be 3-1. Lots of 3-1s this week. But like I said, these like 6 matchups, or at least 5 of these 6 matchups, I think are really, really solid. So going into a couple ones that aren't. Now, this next one, we could see a fight on our hands. It's Florida versus Boston. So Florida's sitting at 1-4. Boston is 2-3. Boston, they need to win out to give themselves a chance for the stage playoffs. Mayhem, they don't really have a chance at this stage playoffs. I mean, if they 4-0 both of their matchups, then maybe they'd have a chance, but I don't think that happens. So this is an interesting matchup because we've seen good Boston, we've seen bad Boston, especially. Florida's been kind of similar, but Florida has been, I don't know how to say this, but they've been kind of solid, I would say. After their first matchup, they looked horrible, but their past 4, they've looked pretty good. And honestly, I see them moving up a couple spots in my next. It depends on the last couple matches, but if they hold serve, I think that they'll probably move up a couple of spots in my power rankings. That being said, I like Boston here. They, like I said, they looked really good against Seoul. 2 matches ago. They had great strategies. Their disengages were super crisp. Their shot calling from Fusions was on point. Fusion's color hacks were popping off, and then they just kind of got stomped by Toronto. I was really disappointed in their performance in that one. So I don't really know where to gauge this team yet, but I do think they're better than Florida. I think they take this win. We'll see if Florida keeps going with the Tavik on May on certain map strategy. That's been very interesting to watch. It's been enjoyable. So we'll see if they continue to do so. Even with that, I think that Boston will be able to kind of just work through that like Houston did last week. And I think that Boston takes this one 3-1, another 3-1. I think Florida will take probably map 2 or 3, but in the end, it's going to be Boston advancing to 3-3. And then the final matchup, it's Vancouver against Chengdu. So this one's not going to be as close, I don't think. I think this is a stomp coming out from Vancouver. I think they improved to 6-0, and they might snag that #1 spot away from the New York Excel, because New York finished 7-0. But if we look at the standings real quick and their map differential, yeah, New York is sitting at 7-0 with +16. Vancouver is 5-0 with +13. So as long as they win both of their matchups and they have a map differential of +4 total, they're gonna do this. And I think that they sweep Chengdu. Vancouver doesn't seem to be a team like Philly that kind of like doesn't take opponents seriously. It looks like they take opponents seriously, like when they played shorthanded Shanghai earlier and destroyed them. I think they'll do the same thing. They'll crush them 4-0, and then their map differential will be at +17, and all they'll have to do is win their last game, and then they'll be the #1 seed. Not that the seeds towards the top matter so much, but it's always nice to be, #1. So yeah, Vancouver is the other team besides New York that has like actually clinched their spot. After 1 and 2, it gets really really hairy. So after the matches tomorrow, I will be doing a little stage 1 playoff picture video talking about a couple of the scenarios for teams. So if your team is in that middle of the pack, stay tuned and be excited for that video. But other than that, those are my predictions for the next couple days. It's getting a little late, so this will go up right after it's done on stream. So thank you very much for watching. Good luck to your teams this week. Hope you guys have a great couple of days, and then I'll see you in the next one.